So your work life is killing you. What do? Stay tuned. Hey folks, this is Kim. Welcome to livemorenow.net. Today I want to talk about ways to handle our lives when work seems to be taking over our personal and professional life, which obviously can wreak havoc on our performance and our relationships. As I was writing today's video, it was my intention to give you 3 quick tips on how to manage this scenario. And as I was writing, I realized that each tip really wasn't that quick. So I decided to create a series so I can address each topic more in depth and really give you some strategies and ideas to help you manage your life. Now, realize, folks, that the ramifications of a high-stress, high-pressure lifestyle that sustains for any extended period of time can have sneaky effects that aren't always obvious until you're suddenly faced with a serious issue, be it your physical health, mental health, or personal and professional relationships. So it's super important that we recognize these conditions before things start breaking down. So what do? When things get out of hand, sometimes we have to actually go into triage mode and mobilize our resources, realize what's a must and what's a plus, what can we scratch off the list for now and what has to get done, which leads me to today's topic about prioritization. Now, prioritization is an overly used word. What does it actually mean and how do we actually do it? To me, prioritization is really about 2 things. Number 1, committing to the priority. And number 2, managing the interruptions or the unknowns. I can spend all kinds of time writing my to-do list and meticulously rank things in order of importance. But if I'm not committed and I'm not prepared for those interruptions, then now I'm just a pinball lurching from crisis to crisis, not actually ever getting to the important work. So today I have a few resources that I want to talk to you about. Keep in mind, folks, that I'm not sponsored by any product or any companies that I'm going to suggest for you. Starting with number 1, I recommend one of my favorite podcasts, Hidden Brain, and specifically the episode called Deep Work 2.0. In that episode, the guest talks about the importance of devoting time to get the important work done. He states that based on the research that he's done, sometimes even the smallest, seemingly innocuous distractions can take us much longer to actually get back on track than we realize. Sometimes it's a little too easy to actually, answer that email real quick. Or sometimes we want to we just want to scratch things off our list, how many things we got done. And so we'll focus on the easy things first. Now, side note, if you do find yourself in this situation where you're paralyzed, you don't know where to start, sometimes starting with a couple of quick, easy things so you can, cross-check a couple things off can help you build momentum. But at some point, you do have to crack down, like I said, and get to that important work. I strongly recommend, again, that you listen to that podcast because he kind of goes into more strategies that he used to help him. I've included a link to this particular episode in the description below. Also would like to plug my favorite app, headspace.com. This is a quick 10-minute guided meditations that I have become virtually dependent upon. And they happen to have a meditation pack, I think it's 10 days long, that is specifically devoted to prioritization. Now, meditating might not seem like an urgent matter, but important. But for me, having become accustomed to doing it pretty much every day, it has become urgent for me to keep myself centered. Now, speaking of important versus urgent, I strongly recommend that you read or listen to Stephen Covey's legendary book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he clearly spells out a means for prioritization using a matrix where he divides tasks into important and or urgent. Unfortunately, many of us spend a good bit of our time in the urgent but not important section of that matrix. Those are things like your phone's ringing, your mother called and wants your cousin's address so she can send out the invitations, or somebody stops by your office unexpectedly. Those are difficult to deal with because it requires your attention if for no other reason than to make it go away. And and managing that is always going to be a challenge. But knowing that is going to happen when you're managing your time will help. But moreover, you may find that you will have to shut your door once in a while. You might have to turn off your phone, shut down your email, whatever you need to do to avoid any of those distractions. Sometimes I have to force myself to do it, and I actually find myself at first feeling a little bit guilty or even anxious. What if I miss something? What if somebody really needs me? And I just remind myself that it wasn't that long ago that most of us managed our lives without emails, text messages, or cell phones. Also, most matters, even urgent ones, can wait at least an hour. And if it's that serious of an issue, someone will find you. Finally, and this is possibly the most important, make sure that you're communicating. A lot of times we, shut down, we stop talking, and people don't realize, whether it's your coworkers, your boss, your spouse, or whoever, friends, don't realize the pressure that you're faced with. In my life, I found it to be enormously helpful when I'm talking to some of my employees who are constantly walking into my office asking questions here and there. If I just tell them, hey, listen, I need to get this, that, and the other thing done by the end of today, so please bear with me if I seem distracted. Many times I found that people are not only willing to accommodate me, but sometimes they'll even jump in and offer assistance, which is wonderful. And people really appreciate that level of communication, because nobody's standing on the sidelines feeling bitter about the fact that they're feeling ignored or whatever thoughts are going through their mind because you're being misunderstood. So in closing, folks, just to recap, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to almost be a slave to that list of priorities. Like I said, rank things in order. And if you're on number 2, stick to number 2 as long as you can and minimize those interruptions as much as possible. I would love to hear from each of you, so please post any comments or suggestions you have in the comment section below. And please click subscribe so that you can receive updates for our next videos in this series. Thank you so much for visiting livemorenow.net.